This remarkable man, Wim Hof, rediscovered what the ancient yogis have been doing for thousands of years. Using very simple breathing techniques, he made his body so resilient to external influences that he is able kind of order his body to remain healthy even in very adverse conditions. Over and over again, he confirmed in laboratory conditions that he can control his body, his nervous system, much more than we are led to believe humans are able to. Moreover, he has trained many groups of volunteers who achieved the same results very quickly. Although the results of these tests are freely published and are not disputed by any scientist, somehow, when you go to your official doctor, provided to you by the medical insurance that you are obliged to pay, you will never hear about this natural and chemical-free way to stay healthy and strong. So these doctors who are supposedly giving you advice based on the latest scientific discoveries are not even mentioning to you this scientifically proved method to stay healthy and have extraordinary control over your body. Some few tens of thousands foreigners visit the Philippines every year for a special reason. They have been diagnosed with a terminal cancer or other disease, and their doctor has told them that they can no longer help them. The traditional psychic healers of the Philippines take to the matter very directly, as you can see, without any anesthetic. They enter in trance, and from within that dimension, they can take out the nasty stuff from within the body of the patient without causing him any pain or side effects. Few seconds after this scary surgery, the patient is ready to go without having to wait for weeks in a hospital being poisoned by strong chemicals. The psychic surgeons of the Philippines and also those of South America that are very similar have been well studied by mainstream scientists.
The first big study is made by Dr. Seutemann from Germany. She was studying 1,200 patients for 1 year after they were cured in the Philippines. And they found a percentage of 19% of positive healing.
19 or 90?
90.
90.
If there are results, so there can be trickery. Important for me were the results. So I was collecting results from the whole world, and I didn't find 90%, but it was very nearby, and I was selecting very difficult patients with an infaust prognosis from the official medical staff. So it was normally cancers with metastasis. And so I found that it was a really surprising results of this type of...
And again, the doctor with whom your medical insurance has kindly provided you doesn't even mention that research. Because for us to be good sheep, we only need to know what is the way to the grazing grounds and then be submissive while being taken advantage of. We should not know much about the rest of the world. Here we see a man with obviously serious problem. God knows if this is even curable with the official medicine, and if it is, at what cost. And here he is being operated while fully conscious, without any anesthetic, by a psychic surgeon from South America. Things get pretty serious at this point. And what is the lady using instead of poisonous chemicals and complex expensive surgery equipment? Singing! The greatest treasure danger of the survivors was their advanced knowledge. The first priority of the parasites was to destroy the greatest asset, the greatest defense of the survivors, their advanced knowledge. I have two good news here. First of all, we have a great deal of that knowledge still left. Some wild tribes have been keeping it for us, maybe not all of it, but at least the most important part. This is a map of tribes that are still untouched by our civilization. And so the next good news is that I was lucky to spend about a year and a half with some wild shamans, and at that time I got a very practical and first-hand experience of what does it mean to be master of one's environment and how to influence, how to model the events and our life with the power of our thoughts and intentions. I'm well aware that when it comes time to science, most of you would expect me to talk about flying saucers, but in reality, it is absolutely possible that the flying saucers were not even part of the technology of the survivors. Some unconfirmed sources claim that the flying saucers were introduced by the parasites into the uncivilized tribes, which were getting mixed with the survivors because they couldn't undermine the survivors themselves. So they attacked they gave this technology to the people who were mixing with them to undermine the usage of more advanced forms of transportation, like for example being able to fly just like that in the air using levitation or also teleportation. But even if this unconfirmed information is not true, even in this case, flying saucers would be just a small branch of the science and technology of the survivors, and definitely not the most important one. If you remember the beginning of the documentary, over there, Ptolemy was saying how he shared his first-hand witness account of the flying Hyperborean person flying in the sky, and later on maybe you remember also the guy with the jetpack on his back. Well, that guy was Ravana. He was definitely a demon. He was a lady kidnapper. He was not a good guy for sure. In other words, we shouldn't be surprised at all if at the end we find out that the flying saucers were a technology introduced by the parasites. On one hand, it would discourage people to use their natural ability to levitate and flight, and on the other hand, it would give advantage during military operations against the survivors carried out by other humans who are already polluted and are taking the side of the parasites. But let's, without further delay, go to the main point, which is the main principle, the basis of all the science of the survivors, and that is controlling one's environment with the power of one's belief system. For an illustration, look at this man. He is controlling the small device with the power of his thoughts. This disabled young man is using the hand replacement device that he operates with his thoughts, not by mechanical means. Soon we'll be able to purchase smartphones that are mind-controlled, brain-controlled. In other words, these examples prove beyond doubt that our thoughts by themselves can produce physical movements in the world around us, world that we usually consider solid. All kinds of devices could be operated using this principle, the power of thought. So when we hear a legend that a magician is shifting objects or rocks or building stone structures just by waving with hands, or just by wishing it, just by ordering these rocks to do it, we should not discard this as impossible, because obviously it is. He gives commands with his thoughts, and then he knows how to address the energy which is responsible for levitation. As you can see, levitation is something possible. Proof is on the screen. All he needs to learn is how to recognize, address, and direct the particular energy responsible for levitation, and that is again absolutely possible because people who operate toy helicopters, for example, with their minds, such devices are sold as toys for children. They can make the helicopter move left, right, or in the desired direction with different types of thoughts. Another example, equipment that produces holographic images equipped with an option, with a device that accepts thought controls or mind controls commands. Probably at this point you wonder what is the connection between all this and controlling the real world around us. After all these technologies that I'm showing are creating illusory images, not real ones. Well, real ones in the sense that most of us understand it nowadays don't really exist. Here is why. As our scientific measurement devices and magnification devices evolve, we can see smaller and smaller particles of matter. The world that we consider solid consists of molecules, but there is absolutely nothing solid about the molecules themselves. It is mostly space with atoms inside, but there is nothing solid about the atoms themselves. They consist of fermions, and again plenty of space, fermions and space, nothing solid. And there is nothing hard and solid about the fermions as well. No matter how small particles we find, it always boils down to the same thing. All-pervasive energy. Maybe the closest word in our dictionary to its nature would be electromagnetic. I cannot guarantee you that I picked up the most appropriate and correct term from physics to describe this energy, but I guarantee you that this is exactly the energy which the ancient advanced civilizations were using in order to manipulate the reality. Because nothing in this huge hologram around us, that is the world that we live in and we consider so solid, nothing happens by chance. All of the unexpected lucky events and all of the sudden disasters, even natural ones, do not come by chance. They are just an external reflection of what we have conceived already in one form or another in this life or in a previous one, with our consciousness, with our thoughts, which are guided by our belief system. Exactly as an artist using the medium of colors and brushes shows his emotions and ideas on the canvas, in the same way we paint the events that happen to us by so-called chance. We paint them with our thoughts, and only afterwards they can happen in the solid world, the world we call solid. And our thoughts are servants of our belief system. And by belief system I mean those rules that we accept for axiomic, things that we accept to be true about reality. And again, I'm not making a hypothesis or trying to find a logical explanation. I'm showing something that I have confirmed to be true with my personal experience, and with the help of the work with this energy, I have managed within a couple of years to completely change my existence completely, and also to start gradually getting access to other levels, to other dimensions of existence. Dimensions that, to be frank, I couldn't even imagine when I was trying to do the standard and popular so-called spiritual practices. I was a sincere spiritual seeker all my life, and to be honest, I really tried many things that look convincing but don't really make any real changes. And so, over the course of centuries, the parasites distorted our belief system, cut off our access to other dimensions, and corrupted our very idea about spirituality, and we are left to run like hamsters in a wheel, forever propelled by our mistaken beliefs. Our wrong definitions about the reality make this circle absolutely vicious and endless. Angels from the skies will not come and kill all the parasites because after that we will continue to run in this vicious circle ourselves without any external help, and this will continue until we do not fix our very definitions. If you type just the word divine in Google Images, this is what you get. On the first page, these are the very first images you get. This is zombification. This is how we have been made parasites ourselves because we accept this as normal. And then we complain that we are invaded by evil parasites and hate them. Well, we have become the parasites ourselves. Just look at this beauty that we accept to exist on our planet. People naively take these images as some sort of unpleasant new fashion or something like this, but indeed they form our consciousness, they form our thoughts, and that gets painted in the events that happen to us by chance. Mass media has turned them into a cool fashion, and we have accepted it, and thus we are digging our own grave today. We have accepted that it is normal for people not to own the land that they are born on, and that is why they starve. The riches of our beautiful planet are in the hands of billionaires, and we continue to support this system by voting and electing politicians who call this lawful. Being cruel, dishonest, and mean to others have been packaged by the mass media as business competitiveness, and we use it as an excuse to treat others inhumanely. Until we do not fix our beliefs about reality, about what is normal, nobody can help us. God helps those who help themselves. In the package of patriotism, which is supposed to be a good quality, inside resides the ugly belief that a human has the right to go and hurt and torture and kill other humans, that there is some excuse for it. No, there is no excuse for it whatsoever. And we will continue to create this ugly world of war that we live in until we do not change our belief that exists a reason for which war is allowed. This is a photo of so-called model published in a women's fashion magazine. This is how we get zombified, and we accept that this is normal. And the belief that such sick images are normal create the sick world around us. Well, let's go a little bit on the technical side, because I'm aware that due to the heavy parasitic conditioning that we are all exposed to, combining astral plane and science will be very difficult intellectual task for many of us. How about advanced medieval rockets? Now many of you will feel comfortable. Okay, this is really science. Here I will present just in a very concise form an article that you can find in full in the description under number 15. When they were fabricating the official history, it was difficult to always remove all details, and here and there something from the truth was left, and one of them is the history of rockets in medieval times. They appear in the historic records that are available for us all of a sudden in the 17th century without any prior evolution at all, in a ready-made form, and moreover in a historic time when the need of developing them was not yet there. The rockets of Alexander Zasyatko that were made few centuries ago would fly 6 kilometers away, and he was not the only one. In England at the same time they would fly for almost 3 kilometers. But what I find most astonishing is their modern looks, and all of this appeared supposedly without any prior evolution. Or at least we don't know how they appeared, to be more precise. Now, Wikipedia does tell us that few thousand of these were used 2 centuries ago during the war in Crimea, but conveniently misses to share more technical details about them because it would be too confusing. This image reflects more or less the standard picture that we are presented of the English invasion in India. But those who like to read history books will find the following description of the battle that occurred when they attacked the kingdom of Hyder Ali in Mosul. He had a special division of rocket shooters that numbered some 1,200 men, and they poured on the British rockets that were 6 kilos in weight and would fly for 1 kilometer. In 1650, Kazimir Semyonovich issues a very interesting book called Artis Magnae Artilleria Pars Prima. The article that I'm presenting is written by an engineer, Alexei Artemyov, who is well familiar with the rocket technologies that we use nowadays. He notices that the technology used in these rockets is absolutely not consistent with the level of technological development the way we know it from the official history. These rockets are absolutely modern looking. And it's not just question of outside the looks. He provides clear detail that those who made the medieval rockets surely had an understanding of the technological processes exactly like the ones we use nowadays for our modern rockets. And the laws of physics on which these processes are based are supposedly discovered much later in time after this book was published. But most remarkable are his observations about the rocket nozzles. These are very complex devices, and large teams of scientists belonging to many international institutes and spending many millions of euros on a great number of projects were needed to find out the formulas that describe the correct gas dynamics, the formulas that would allow building these nozzles. So it seems these large international teams of scientists are discovering this in the last few decades, and yet 3-4 centuries ago the rockets with same nozzles, absolutely same design, are already published. And this is one more proof that the lost technologies of the ancients were not lost thousands of years ago, but it was a very recent event about which we are simply not informed. And even the idea of being lost is also a parasitic brainwashing, because we have actually a lot of technologies that can make our life much easier, but we're not simply using them. For example, solar cars. So many enthusiasts are making them at home, using them. Commercial models have been already designed and tested a long time ago, but they have been banned for manufacturing. While the mass media is shamelessly lying to us that governments are trying to encourage clean energy, what they actually do is they try to suppress it by giving heavy subsidies to dirty technologies like usage of petrol. In some places, you even have to pay the government when you use solar power. Yes, you heard it right. You install your own solar system, you pay for it, everything, and at the end, you pay for every kilowatt that you get from it to the government. And then when you switch on TV, you see that farce of huge international conferences being summoned on the subject of promoting and helping pure energies. Really, how shameless can they get? Look at this man, he's dragging his own solar car because in some regions he doesn't even have the right to drive it, and when he passes through those regions he just drags it himself to show the people how they encourage clean energy. A friend of mine, who is not even an engineer, he is a gardener. As a hobby he makes car spoilers. Without much engineering knowledge, he adds these simple devices to the cars and they start saving some 20% on fuel. We have stupid traffic laws in abundance, like you have to drive with your lights on in broad daylight and so on, and yet there is no law encouraging these simple devices to be implemented, thus reducing pollution and costs. Well, after the short rocket break, let's get to the main point. The science of the advanced old civilizations. The ancient inhabitants of a small region in Peru all have trepanations on their skulls, as if the full villages were some sort of a lab and everybody was like a test mouse or something, or was it voluntary? But most of the citizens either suffered from some sort of disease that needed treatment in this way, or it some sort of medical test. Well, regardless of its purpose, the medical procedure of trepanation, or in plain words, drilling a hole in your skull, is not an easy and harmless medical procedure, at least for us, the advanced ones. Well, if we, the advanced ones, find this type of surgery still very complicated and risky, so how did the so-called primitive people in the past manage to do it? Moreover, quite successfully, because the skeletons of these people of the trepanation, they actually show that the wound healed successfully and people died from some other cause. Some people had a number of trepanations done on their skulls. Well, how they did it is shown very well on the art, ancient art that is found in the region and depicts surgeries. So we see quite simple tools being used, knives, scissors, and things like that. A picture that is fully consistent with what we saw earlier on the footage with the psychic surgeons. They go in trance, and from the other dimension they remove the sickness by using that very same energy of which the smallest particles of matter consist. Although that energy is invisible to human eye, humans can perceive it with other senses. Everybody can learn to do so. That is why it is very important for the parasites to stop us, to prevent us in every possible way from learning how to work with this energy. And here is how they do it. See James Randi, he is debunking, he is exposing scam psychic surgeons.
A little animal blood and a few chicken parts complete the illusion.
Such scenes are actively shown on TV, and that's okay. It is absolutely fine and needed to alert the population that not all people who claim to be psychic surgeons are such. Many of them are indeed scams. But the trick is like this. Only scams are shown on TV. Real miracle healers, like for example John of God from Brazil, are not shown on mainstream channels. This is a man whose exceptional abilities have been well documented and are beyond doubt. Such topics are not discussed on the big monster mass media channels. They prefer to concentrate on gossip like the 17th boyfriend of some pop star. So the boyfriends of the pop star are important, but miracles, real miracles, are not important. And not only that, only the scams are shown on the mass media channels, and people get the impression that all the astral work is scam after all. And what about hearing the message of people like John of God? Well, he is not even allowed to explain properly what he is doing because he is threatened with legal action. Although he is still allowed to do his work in Brazil, he is not allowed to explain what he is doing and how he is doing it. Feelings about psychic surgery can be found under number 17 in the links in the description, and under number 14 is an excellent book written by Paramahamsa Yogananda himself and gives a very accurate idea of what is yoga all about, and that is achieving the full potential of one's psyche, of one's consciousness, making the subconscious conscious. And it is not about exotic gymnastics, although in some cases physical exercises were indeed a part of some specific branches of yoga, but not all of them. The official history of almost all religions goes like this. Some sort of a divine being or a spirit talks to a mortal human and gives him perfect knowledge from God. So far so good. Then why all these churches themselves nowadays declare all people who are contacted by angels to be devil's workers? I'm confused. It seems religion is about being able to contact the Holy Spirit, and yet when you contact it, that is not welcome, that is not allowed. Well, the real reason for not being allowed is that when the real spirit of the gods starts talking to people, the first thing he will tell them is that their so-called religion has nothing to do with any godliness, but it just helps organizing wars and further plunging humanity in all kinds of artificial disasters. We are lucky that some small pieces of very old Gospels have reached us in unedited by the parasite's form. And what do we read there? For example, the very definition of what is a Christian. And the definition is very straightforward and clear. A real Christian is he who, when at night closes his eyes, he starts seeing the real world. Due to the parasitic programming, most people reject such statements as fairy tales immediately without even checking them. But after my experiences with the wild tribes, I confirm with absolute certainty for you all that this is the absolute truth and cannot be put in more correct words. And those who do not explore their ability to function in other dimensions are exactly like people who decide to wear bandage on their eyes lifelong and never see the world around because they have heard something from somebody and have decided that this is the right thing to do. Subsequently, when Christianity was stolen away from the real Christians and turned into a trademark to package inside parasitic ideas, the very definition that I told you in the beginning, that when you close your eyes you see the truth, was substituted with something else. And nowadays the definition of a Christian is the one who believes Jesus Christ resurrected. I find this rather ridiculous. How can adult people accept that by blindly believing that certain event happened that can make you spiritual or something? People are using all kinds of methods to access the astral plane. Some do it simply with concentration, others do it with the help of sound. That's why the shamans usually have drums in their hands. This is not about performance. This is something very technical, by the way. And yet others use sacred plants like ayahuasca, the mushroom Samarita muscari, or DMT that can be extracted from various plants. Although the International Narcotics Board, which is a part of UN, openly claims that the usage of such sacred herbs are the right of all people, all tribal people, and there is nothing illegal about doing that. At the same time, that very same organization issues blacklists of so-called dangerous drugs and includes the sacred herbs in them. Those blacklists are then implemented in the lawmaking procedures of all countries on earth, and for this reason itself, these sacred plants are classified as highly poisonous, although scientific research shows absolutely the opposite. Not only they are non-poisonous, but they are highly beneficial for health and they are not addictive. At the moment, further experimental research on them is strictly prohibited. And what to speak of government-organized research? We do not even own our own bodies. The governments are even not allowing us to do with our bodies whatever we want to. This is infringement on our human rights. More on this topic in the links section, number 16. The advanced science of the survivors, and the way I am presenting it, as the ability to model and influence the full world, the full life around with the power of our beliefs and thoughts, is also reflected in a pale way in the ideas of the New Age followers. They call it manifesting things. Outside of the New Age stream, many bestsellers have been also written presenting a very simplified, extremely simplified version of what I'm trying to explain, and basically if you believe in something it will happen. Although the general summary is correct, 99% of the people who preach such things have no practical on-hand knowledge of how the electromagnetic nature of our thoughts influences in a mechanical way, so to say, the physical laws that govern its influence on the structure of the matter around us, and not only the structure but also the events that happen, because not only we have physical objects but they also exist in time, which is another type of energy. And because the authors of similar books and ideas have very little knowledge beyond the general vague idea, in most cases their recipes will not work for all people. In the links section under number 18 I have listed highly recommended authors and resources which not only explain the exact mechanics of how our thoughts can manipulate the world and the events around us, but also provide easy to understand step-by-step information on how you personally can start living in a different reality of beauty and harmony without having to wait for somebody to liberate the human race. Also, it will become clear that this liberation will take place when collectively enough humans decide to leave the parasitic paradigm. But the first and most important step before exploring those resources is to stop watching TV. TV keeps us anchored to the parasitic reality. We believe in it. We think it's real. It's like drinking a liter of strong poison every day and then looking for a cure at the same time. That won't work well. First, one should stop drinking the poison and then slowly start detoxifying with the recommended books. This part of the Survivor series is the most important one, and I would like to encourage everybody to upload it to their YouTube channel as well. After I finalize the other parts as well, I would encourage you to distribute them as well, absolutely for free. I would highly appreciate when you reload them to other channels to disable comments, and also send me just a short message with the link where you have uploaded any of my videos so that I can keep track of what's going on. Thank you very much.